Hey, Gary here with you. Day 38, AI blogging. So there's been quite a few changes since we started way back at day 1, all the way up to day 38 in the AI itself. With plugins and web browsing being released specifically in ChatGPT, now we had that in Koala Writer and we saw some of that effects when we wrote those articles, and it was able to cite the sources that it was going out and gathering the information from on the internet. But now inside of ChatGPT, we have web browsing enabled, but we also now have the plugins. So at day 38, it's at a stage where I'm looking at what is possible or what I can do to continue to create the content. And if the content gets better or faster, more efficient, all these questions, all these concerns, but I don't want to lose focus of what the original idea of the case study was. And is to have the AI generate the content for me. Now, that does change where we are and what we're doing because the technology has changed even from day 1 of this case study, where now we're just here on day 38, and now we have all these plugins. But let's come back together and let's center this and let's see where we are inside of Google Search Console. At this point, we have 56 pages indexed. That means that we created the pages and the posts, and Google has indexed those and started ranking them. And of course, if you go look at performance, when performance comes up, if we were to go up here, you can see the most recent date. So we'll go to custom is the 21st of May. Today is the 22nd of May as we continue along in this live case study. You can see the impressions are going up. Of course, clicks are always a concern, but I want to focus in on impressions. And based upon the number of impressions, of 145 for this keyword, best binoculars for stargazing, and it getting no clicks. Of course, the average position for this content is 67.5. So we're not elevating, or we haven't elevated to the top of the search engines yet, or Google. We haven't elevated to that point where we can get clicks. So I want to see what the AI can do for us now at this stage with the plugins and it being connected to the internet, specifically talking about ChatGPT and where we can take that. But before I do that, I want to discuss the fact that I created a piece of content for Cosmology Basics, and the post was written by ChatGPT plus the plugins WebPilot, Wolfram Alpha, and Show Me. And that was for the post keyword, or for the main keyword, Big Bang Theory Timeline. Of course, we're going for all of the relevant topical authority keywords to build topical authority around cosmology. You can see here's the post that I created. And you can see here is how I did it. I used the standard LSI keywords prompt that are closely related to that keyword, Big Bang Theory Timeline. Again, the LSI keyword inside of cosmology being the Big Bang Theory. But then I also said, then use 3 people also search for results from Google for the main keyword and the LSI keywords to create a blog post outline. So this means that it used WebPilot to go and to search Big Bang Theory Timeline. Then it pulled out that information, or pulled back those 30 keywords, as well as the 3 people also search for results from Google. So it went through the 30 keywords, but then it also, based on that prompt and based on the fact that WebPilot can now go and search the internet, it pulled this information. What is the timeline of the Big Bang Theory? What are the stages of the Big Bang Theory in order? And what is the 1043 seconds universe? Then it created that outline. And you can see here that it used those what people asked for as subheadings, which is really cool. But then I went right back into my standard prompts of asking for a 5th grade reading level, or to write this section, the introduction, as a 5th grade reading level. And you can see it went through here. It started adding emojis again. Of course, I had to tell it not to use emojis, or I said, I don't want you to use emojis if you understand. Then I moved on to start writing the sections. And then I also said, please add any graphs or tables. It used the Show Me plugin to create this timeline graph. But you can see, or I don't know that at this stage, if having it connected to the internet with those plugins. And for example, you can see here it used Wolfram Alpha to answer this, what people also asked for, what are the stages of the Big Bang Theory. But the content seemed to get a little light. And even though I asked it for tables throughout this conversation, it never ever gave me a table. But then again, I don't know that tables were needed at this stage, the at a glance or summary information, but it did provide me this neat, or sort of what I think is neat, and I don't know if it really provided any value or not, this timeline graph, but it does give that visual aspect of the blog post, no doubt, which I think will later on down the road for sure help us when people do start clicking and start reading our content. That's going to help people stay on the page longer, consume more of the content, and then click through and keep reading other content or keep reading other blog posts as we continue to develop this content. So that is what I've done and where I am with those plugins. But I did want to go back to this keyword and the performance. It having 145 impressions. Again, the average position not high up in the rankings or not high up on the results page. And you can see here, best binoculars for stargazing. If we were to just search that, and you can see it gives you this little box here if you're logged into your account. And you can see that it's showing you the impressions, the average position. But you can also see down here that it's only visible to you, meaning me, because I'm logged in as universeunriddled@gmail.com. But you get an idea here of what are the blog posts that are ranking for these results. And honestly, just looking at these, and here's the people also asked for, which are great to fill in your blog post. But just looking at these, you're thinking, well, I don't see a reason why mine wouldn't rank. Now, you can see all these have these images next to them. If you scroll down towards the bottom, you can see that those images are going to go away for some of these other blog posts. So you want to make sure that you definitely have that image, or if you have a video or something. But the idea here is to improve the content based upon what we can see, but we want a way to be able to see if the AI can do that for us, because that's the whole point now of these plugins and ChatGPT being connected to the internet, is using it as an AI assistant to help us do the research. And in this case, the research is just looking and saying, well, I'm looking at the search results. I think my article compares, my title, my excerpt, I think it all looks as good, if not better than what's here available. Now I just have to wait for Google to test it and then see if I can get some clicks. But you can see that Google has given it impressions, but there are no clicks. So those impressions mean people are seeing it, but there's no clicks yet. So let's take that back to the AI and see what we can do. So here at this stage, again, I'm using the plugins. I'm going to be using the plugin WebPilot as well as VoxScript. If you want to see what those are and what those do, you can check out my plugins video, and I can dive deeper into those as I start to use them. Again, here in this case study, we're focused on creating content for the blog, but that also leads us down that path and that trail of having to go and find out what these plugins do and what they're capable of. It also means testing them. So I used this prompt. Use WebPilot to find the top 5 articles that reference best binoculars for astronomy. Then find the top 3 people asked for questions for the keyword. Then use VoxScript to find the most viewed about best binoculars for astronomy. After collecting that information, please use it to write an 8-heading detailed article that covers the keyword. Here you can see WebPilot went out and pulled the information. VoxScript also did the same thing. And of course, at any time, you can click on those and you can see exactly what it did. But then you can see that it wrote the blog post and it provided me 8 headings. Now here you can see what it did. It just created a heading called People Also Ask. This could be turned into a frequently asked questions or something like that if you wanted to just answer these questions sort of in a paragraph, or you could make each one of these a subheading. That really depends on what your strategy is and what you think is best. I've seen people use FAQ. I've also seen people add these as headings. I've done the same thing in the past, and I've seen different results depending on the keyword. So take that and test it and see how you can use it, just like I'm doing here in this case study. But you can see this is really kind of thin, right? So I went back, and then you can see here 1 of 2. If I click, you'll see the second attempt. And you're going to see here, if I go back real quick, you're going to see or focus in on this first part of the prompt. I actually added and scraped their content. So now you can see WebPilot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instances of WebPilot versus the 1 instance of WebPilot, and then the same 2 instances of VoxScript. But really the content is about the same. So at this point, this really just becomes a high quality outline, or it becomes what would be an outline based upon the fact that our prompt went out and scraped this content. Then we take that and we move forward in the case study and we say, do we want to use this type of outline versus the old style of outline that we were doing? So if I was to open a new chat and just go to ChatGPT default without web browsing, again, without web browsing enabled or without plugins enabled. And I was just to come here and grab my prompt of write a blog post outline for the main keyword, and that keyword being best binoculars for astronomy. Then it's going to list 30 keywords. Of course, this isn't using keywords that are current right now on the internet. It is using keywords based upon its database up to 2021. But you're going to see the results are about the same. And this is kind of thing that you have to look at. And this is where I am at day 38, looking at this going, let me compare to what I get specifically for this keyword, for this content, based upon what the AI has already been trained on up to the date and the cutoff date being like 2021 versus using a plugin and it going out and actually looking at the content that's out there, scraping the internet and then saying, okay, now that I've fed that content, that live content into the AI, now the AI has that additional knowledge. Now the AI and the language model is going to produce a new level of content based upon that up-to-date information. So then at that point, it would write this blog post, or it would generate this outline, and then we would go back to the same thing we've been doing in each day as we generate this content, and we would say, okay, now let me get this article done based upon what the AI knows about this content. Again, I think at this stage, at day 38, with the changes that have occurred, we have to pause and we have to look and say we have 56 articles indexed. We're almost at about 50 articles. Let's baseline those 50 articles and improve them, and then take some time to learn more about what we have now available to us as far as web access and the plugins, and then compare that as well to what Koala is doing and if there's any updates going to be made there, and compare that content and see the number of impressions versus clicks and rankings and all that good stuff. And then improve that content and then say, okay, let's use what we've learned and what we're going to learn in the next 50 days. Of course, we're only at day 38, so we have a few more days to get to 50 where we're going to learn and keep creating that content and looking at ways to improve it and also measuring it as we move along. But then looking at this content, the way that we used to do it versus what we can do now when we're looking at ChatGPT, specifically ChatGPT with the plugins enabled. If this is helpful, if you're enjoying it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.